Hello everybody! Modding your 3DS has a lot of benefits, one of them being to preserve retro games, which is why I have decided to mod my 3DS XL. As some of you might have heard, the hardware in DS and 3DS games are starting to fail. I have a few that are trying to die on me currently, like my Pokemon Y that needs to be rebooted multiple times before it starts up. The way these carts are made, they won't last forever, which is why I'm going to mod my 3DS so I can back up my precious games before they get sent to the Shadow Realm. First things first. For this mod, I need a 3DS, a SD card reader, and an SD card. I'm using the max gigabytes recommended, 128 for this SD card. As someone who is a complete noob, this mod took me about an hour and a half to complete. The tutorial I followed is on the website 3ds.hacks.guide. This guide is very good. I'll link it to the description below. In the guide, it has me select my 3DS type and its version. I have a 3DS XL, so that's what I select. It suggests to have the system up to date, so I update my 3DS's system and check the version I have to input in the guide. It then instructed me to download the zip folder MSET9 version 2.1 and to download and install Python 3.14.2 on my PC. This next part required me to format my SD card into a specific file type called FAT32. SD cards do not usually come in this format, and Windows has a cap on how large gigabytes can be when formatting to FAT32. My SD card is in the 64 gigabytes and higher range, so a tool is required to format my largest SD card. I can check what drives I have in my File Explorer on my storage section. I have a few drives, but my SD card is labeled as drive E. I'm very careful to make sure I'm selecting the correct drive for my SD card. Accidentally selecting the wrong drive, like my computer's drive, could wipe out my entire PC. I'm able to use the tool to select the size of the formatting and name of the SD card. So here was the part that was unclear to me. After I formatted the SD card to FAT32, the guide tells me to copy the MSET9 version 2.1 into my newly formatted SD card. So I do that, and then run the MSET9 Windows bat file like it says for Windows users. I end up getting an error here, which took me a while to problem solve. I realized after looking at the sample picture that I was missing some important files. So deleting everything and then extracting the files again, it looked better, but it was still missing the Nintendo folder. I didn't see any information how to get the Nintendo folder onto the SD card at this part of the guide. I was wondering if I was supposed to make it file myself, but I'm glad I didn't because I was supposed to put it back in my 3DS after I formatted it. The 3DS automatic makes the Nintendo folder for me. Now, you might think that sounds like the obvious first choice to put the SD card back in the 3DS, but there are tons of mods I have done in the past that require you to create folders and name them yourself, so it was a valid concern. Once I got the Nintendo file on there, everything was running smoothly. I began to set up for the MSET9. It took me through several steps, making me feel like a hacker despite having no idea what most of this stuff means. I'm just trusting the process here based on others that have come before me. There's a lot of back and forth with taking the SD card in and out of the PC and 3DS. So here is me doing that again and completing the next step of this mod, the Me Maker. The guide has me create Me data on my 3DS and tells me to go into the software management. I'm supposed to reset this corrupted data and then turn off my 3DS, again to only put my SD card back into the PC. I run some fancy MSET9 scripts so that way I'm able to launch the safe B9S installer on my 3DS. This next part was a bit unexpected and felt kind of scary. The guide wanted me to go to the extra data menu under data management in the 3DS, not touch any of the buttons or screen, and pull out the SD card while the 3DS was still on. Then, for what felt like the 100th time, reinsert my SD card back into my PC and then run MSET9 scripts again and inject it into the 3DS booting operations from my understanding. That way, the 3DS boots from Luma. Then I had to reinsert the SD card back into my 3DS, do some magic button code pressing to proceed the operations. The Luma 3DS configuration popped up telling me to refer back to the wiki. Again, with the SD card now back in my PC, I run even more MSET9 scripts with the guide guiding me through it all. There was a 5-step process for all these scripts, the 5th one being to remove the MSET9 scripts from the SD card because according to the guide, leaving them there would cause issues, and we don't want no issues. I move on to the finalizing step of the guide and was required to insert 2 new files into my SD card, the first one being called finalize.romfs into the main section, or root as they call it, of the SD card files. The next file required me to go into the newly added Luma file from the previous steps and create a file called payload inside of it. But mine was already in there, so I followed the guide and put the x_finalize_helper.firm file into the payloads file. I'm now able to update my 3DS system yet again, which I end up doing, but the way the instructions were written confused me a little because the guide lists a few ways things could go. I just decided to update my 3DS connecting it to the Wi-Fi like you would, and it was fine. Nothing interesting happened. I was really just overthinking this part because I momentarily forgot the 3DS servers were no longer in operation. After updating, the guide has you press a few different buttons on the 3DS to open a new menu, the right trigger, the down button, and select all at the same time. I go to miscellaneous options, dump DSP firmware, and select it, which tells me it has been successfully written to the SD card. Then I go back and select nullify user time offset, which the operation succeeds. Next was God Mode 9. To start this part of the process, I had to put my SD card back into my 3DS and then turn it on while holding the X button at the same time. This launches God Mode 9. I'm prompted to back up my files and then to set up the correct time. It tells me time will need adjustment after setting the RTC. Then it brings me to another screen where I'm prompted to hit the home button by the guide. It brings up a menu, I select scripts, and then finalize. It starts doing its thing. Another screen pops up and asks me if it's okay if it takes 15 minutes to run the scripts, and I hit yes. There's another screen that asks me if I want to unlock some of the other hacker stuff. I say yes, of course. And then I get to hit more buttons and a code to modify system data, installations, and saved games. It starts zooming, downloading the hacker data. Setup was now complete. I put up my SD card back into my computer to make the backup file for my new God Mode 9 backup, and then delete them off my SD card. With the final SD card placement back in my 3DS, I turn it on and suddenly it's Christmas. So many apps to unwrap. One of the apps is called FBI, which I find kind of funny since it shares the same acronym with the US's FBI, a funny name for a mod application. That's basically all it took to mod my 3DS. If you guys want me to go over what each app does or how to preserve your 3DS games on modded 3DS systems, let me know. Bye-bye!